There is a moment most people never have. Standing in the aisle at Tesco or Sainsbury's, reaching for a bottle of water, assuming that because it costs more than tap water, it must be cleaner. That assumption is worth examining. The UK bottled water market is now worth over £3 billion a year. It has more than doubled in size over the last decade. And as that market has grown, so has the independent testing, the regulatory scrutiny, and in some cases, the corporate scandals that brands would prefer you never hear about. What follows is not speculation. Every concern raised in this video is grounded in verified testing data, official recall notices, regulatory rulings, or documented corporate conduct. These are 10 brands that are sold widely across Britain. Brands many people trust completely, and there are things about each of them that deserve to be said out loud. Evian has been a fixture of British life for decades. It sits in hotel minibars from Cornwall to Aberdeen. It is handed out at business meetings, sold at every major supermarket, and carries a reputation for alpine purity. The Danone, the French company behind the brand, has spent enormous sums to maintain. The imagery is always the same. Mountains, glaciers, the suggestion of water so clean it has barely been touched by human hands. In 2018, the independent journalism organization Orb Media tested 259 bottles of water from 11 countries, representing multiple major brands. Microplastic contamination was found in 93% of samples. Evian was among the brands included in that research. Microplastics enter bottled water through the plastic of the bottle itself, through the cap, and through the machinery used during the filling process. Scientists are still building the full picture of what long-term ingestion means for the body, but what is already established is that bottled water contains microplastic particles at levels significantly higher than properly regulated tap water. In 2023, Swiss researchers also identified pesticide residue in Evian samples, directly challenging the brand's core purity claims. A separate legal challenge in the United States is currently arguing that microplastic contamination makes Evian's use of the word natural fundamentally misleading under consumer protection rules. You are paying considerably more than tap water for something that independent research suggests may be less pure than what comes out of your kitchen. Moving on now to a brand found in virtually every motorway service station, office kitchen, and supermarket chiller in England. Buxton is Nestlé's primary UK mineral water brand, and it is the corporate ownership that is the central concern here. In 2024, French authorities confirmed that Nestlé had been illegally filtering mineral water across its French operations for more than 15 years. The filtration methods used, including ultraviolet light treatment and activated carbon filtering, are explicitly prohibited under European regulations for products sold as natural mineral water. The law requires that such water reaches the bottle in its natural state. Nestlé broke that law, and critically, the company concealed this from regulators for well over a decade. French authorities are pursuing significant financial consequences, and the scandal prompted a complete overhaul of Nestlé's European mineral water operations. Buxton operates as a separate brand to the French products directly at the center of that investigation. But when a company has demonstrated a willingness to break regulatory rules on this scale and hide it for 15 years, the question every consumer is entitled to ask is a simple one. How much confidence should we place in their broader transparency? That is a question only you can answer, but you deserve to know it exists. The next brand on this list raises a completely different kind of concern. Not contamination, not corporate deception over product content, something quieter, but for many British people, just as significant. Harrogate Spring Water is a well-regarded British brand. It is served on British Airways, Virgin Atlantic and TUI flights. It is stocked across major UK supermarkets. There are no meaningful contamination issues with the product itself, but there is a planning dispute that has received considerable attention, and it tells you something about the gap between a brand's public image and its actual behaviour. Harrogate Spring Water, in which Danone holds a majority stake, has put forward plans to significantly expand its bottling operations. That expansion would require the destruction of an area called Rotary Wood. This is not a commercial timber plantation. Rotary Wood was planted over many years by local volunteers and children from primary schools in the area. It was built as a community environmental project, a small piece of green space created by ordinary people who live nearby. The local MP Tom Gordon led a public campaign to save the woodland. Petitions gathered thousands of signatures. North Yorkshire Council has deferred the decision on multiple occasions due to public opposition. A brand that builds its identity around natural spring water and environmental care, while simultaneously seeking to demolish a wood planted by school children, is not behaving consistently with the values it advertises. For many people over 50 who remember when British companies were expected to have some regard for the communities around them, that inconsistency matters. Now, let us talk about a brand with a slightly more technical problem. Volvic is one of the most widely purchased bottled waters in Britain. Its association with volcanic rock filtration has given it an outdoors, natural image that has resonated with British consumers for years. Consumer Reports, the long-established American independent testing organization, identified arsenic in Volvic at 4 parts per billion. Consumer Reports recommends a safety threshold of 3 parts per billion for regular, long-term consumption due to the cumulative nature of arsenic in the body. Arsenic does not simply pass through, it accumulates over time, and it is linked to cardiovascular disease and other chronic conditions. If you drink the same water brand every single day for years, that accumulation becomes the relevant variable, and not any single bottle. The second concern with Volvic is specific to the flavoured range. Volvic Touch of Fruit is sold heavily across UK supermarkets, often positioned directly alongside the plain mineral water, as if it belongs to the same category. But the flavoured version contains added sugar, citric acid, and flavourings. Sugar absorbed in liquid form enters the bloodstream quickly. For anyone managing blood sugar levels, weight, or cardiovascular health after the age of 50. A drink that looks like water but behaves nutritionally like a soft drink is a genuine issue. The acid content also gradually erodes tooth enamel, particularly when sipped regularly throughout the day. Many people never connect increasing dental sensitivity to a drink they consider healthy water. Smart Water occupies a particular position on supermarket shelves. The clean design, the clinical language about vapor distillation, the suggestion of added electrolytes. Everything about the packaging is engineered to imply that science has made this water better than ordinary water. It belongs to Coca-Cola, and the company has invested substantially in that positioning. The German consumer watchdog organization Foodwatch gave Smart Water its Golden Windbag Award. Presented annually to the food or drink product they consider the most misleading in its advertising. Dutch consumer groups independently gave it an equivalent honor for the same reason. Both organizations concluded the same thing. The process used to produce smart water is not an upgrade on natural spring water, it is a downgrade. Here is what the process actually involves. The UK version of smart water begins with spring water from Northumberland, which naturally contains beneficial minerals. That water is then vapor distilled, stripping out virtually everything mineral it contains. Trace amounts of calcium chloride, magnesium chloride, and potassium bicarbonate are then added back in quantities so small that the nutritional label still shows 0 sodium and no meaningful mineral value. Independent water experts and organizations, including the Cleveland Clinic, have confirmed that the electrolytes present at those concentrations provide no measurable health benefit. You are paying a premium for water that had its value removed and then had almost nothing put back. Now for a brand that came as a shock to many people when the story broke. Highland Spring is Scotland's best-known bottled water. It holds over 11% of the UK market and generates revenues well above £100 million a year. It carries Soil Association organic certification and has been a trusted name in British homes for generations. In 2021, the UK Food Standards Agency issued a formal recall notice covering approximately 30,000 Highland Spring 750 milliliter glass sparkling water bottles. The reason was a manufacturing defect that created a genuine risk of bottles exploding, not a gradual health concern. Not an invisible contaminant, bottles shattering without warning in people's kitchens, bathrooms, and hands. 3 consumers reported incidents during the period the bottles were in circulation. 1 person sustained a minor cut. Highland Spring cooperated with the Food Standards Agency throughout the recall process, but when a brand with that level of market presence and that level of revenue allows a fault of this nature to reach 30,000 British homes, it raises serious questions about manufacturing quality control. Organic certification does not prevent glass bottles from exploding. That is not a small oversight. Next is a brand that appears in fine restaurants, hotel bars, and supermarkets from one end of Britain to the other. Perrier, the iconic green glass sparkling water from France, has been owned by Nestlé for decades. Its marketing positions it as naturally carbonated from a protected and pristine source in southern France. Independent testing conducted by Consumer Reports identified PFAS compounds in Perrier at a level of 1.1 parts per trillion. PFAS are synthetic, industrial chemicals with no safe natural route out of the human body. They are sometimes called forever chemicals, precisely because they accumulate in blood, tissue and organs over time and are linked to kidney and liver conditions. Environmental health organizations recommend a maximum threshold of 1 part per trillion. Perrier tested above that level. Separate research has also confirmed the presence of microplastic particles in Perrier samples entering the water during the production process. A product marketed on the premise of purity at a premium price, containing synthetic chemicals that the body cannot eliminate, is not the product its presentation suggests. How we come to perhaps the most straightforwardly misleading product on the entire list. Vitamin water is sold across UK supermarkets, gyms and leisure centres in brightly coloured bottles packed with language about energy, wellness and active living. It sits on shelves in a way that invites comparison with healthy choices. It belongs to Coca-Cola. The UK Advertising Standards Authority banned vitamin water advertising on 2 separate occasions for making misleading health claims. The regulator ruled that advertisements suggesting the drink delivered enhanced hydration or nutritional benefit to the body were not supported by evidence. Each standard bottle of vitamin water contains approximately 33 grams of sugar. That is the equivalent of roughly 8 teaspoons. The actual vitamin content present in that same bottle amounts to less than 0.5% of the total liquid. The British Heart Foundation and the Children's Food Campaign examined the brand's marketing claims about fruit juice content and found them to be inaccurate for the majority of the range. When challenged, Coca-Cola acknowledged the descriptions were incorrect. In the United States, legal action forced the brand to revise its labeling and remove prohibited health claims entirely. This is a sugar drink. It has been told twice by a UK regulator that it cannot honestly claim to be anything else. Further along, the premium shelf sits Fiji Water, the distinctive square bottle, the remote Pacific Island sourcing, and the phrase Earth's finest water have made it a status product in British retailers such as Waitrose and Ocado. But several things sit behind that image that deserve attention. Fiji Water has faced a recall of close to 2 million bottles following the detection of elevated manganese levels and bacterial contamination. The US Food and Drug Administration classified the recall as unlikely to cause serious health consequences, but a recall of that scale involving bacteria found in a product sold as absolutely pure is not a footnote. Independent testing has also identified both microplastic particles and BPA contamination in Fiji water samples. And then there is the journey the water makes to reach you. A Fiji water travels approximately 16,000 kilometers to arrive in the United Kingdom. That is roughly half the circumference of the Earth for a single bottle of water. Environmental assessments have estimated the carbon cost of that journey to be dramatically higher than any domestically sourced alternative. Paying a premium price for recalled stock history, contamination findings, and a carbon footprint of that magnitude, when high-quality water may be available from a properly filtered tap 30 seconds away, is worth pausing on. And now we come to the final entry on this list, and I want to be straightforward with you about why I have saved it for last. San Pellegrino is Italian, premium, served in the finest restaurants, and appears regularly on lists of waters worth drinking. It has a genuine character and a long heritage. Many people, including some health commentators, speak well of it. And yet, there is a fact about San Pellegrino that rarely appears in those positive assessments. San Pellegrino is owned by Nestlé, the same company at the center of the 15-year illegal filtration scandal in France. Independent testing has detected PFAS compounds in San Pellegrino samples, and microplastic contamination has been confirmed in line with industry-wide findings. The PFAS level measured was below the 1 part per trillion threshold, recommended by environmental health groups. Below a threshold is not the same as absent, but the deeper issue is this. When a company has demonstrated a willingness to break European regulations governing natural mineral water to conceal it for over 15 years across major brands and multiple countries, and then continue selling that water as natural, the reasonable consumer response is to want clear, verifiable reassurance that every brand in that company's portfolio meets the standard it claims. Nestlé has not provided that across its full range. Until it does, knowing who ultimately owns the product you are buying seems like a reasonable thing to be told. There is a final thought worth leaving you with before the end of this video. The Drinking Water Inspectorate in the United Kingdom tests tap water to one of the highest regulatory standards in the world. Public records show a compliance rate of 99.97% across the supply network. A good quality water filter applied to your kitchen tap gives you access to water that is monitored more rigorously than any bottled brand on this list, at a fraction of the cost, with none of the environmental impact. That is not a small point. That is the whole picture.